Well, I've been expecting you. That was a kind of cringe beginning, but we'll roll with it. So, for this video, my ideas are a bit scattered. I have three main ideas, but they're unrelated. So, I'll just talk about each one. First one, I'm I'm like 99% sure I'm going to start a podcast, and it's not going to be anything serious. Not production level or anything like that, just talking with friends and getting some interesting conversations. I think that will provide value. I've talked with friends and I've had this thought where I wish I had started a podcast earlier because I wanted to get those conversations in. And a lot of my friends are interesting. They have unique experiences from me that provide value to me, and I'm sure they would provide value to other people. And hopefully, I could facilitate the questions that would provide value, that would show the knowledge, that would give the knowledge to others properly. So, another part of it is I listed down it would how okay, so one of the attributes of starting a podcast is you could become famous from it. But the thing is, I don't really. It would be nice to be famous, but at the same time, it wouldn't be because there are very few benefits you get from being famous. You could help with the fame, you could get money from it indirectly, but it's not as it's not that easy. I mean, you see with TikTok influencers, they're crazy popular, but what they get from the TikTok platform is like cents. They probably get like dollars. The crazy rich or sorry, the crazy popular TikTok influencers probably don't get much of a paycheck from the TikTok platform directly, but through other platforms like YouTube pays out a decent amount, and you could also sell merchandise that would pay out really well. Things like that. You could get money from being famous, but directly being famous, you like there's nothing you can really do. You can advertisements are a big thing actually. So people would pay you, companies would pay you to advertise their product, but that's more on the company themselves recognizing that you're a famous figure, recognizing that you're able to reach all these people, and from then you can actually have that advertisement that sponsorship deal. But you have to be well established at that point. I'm not really looking to that. That would be really cool, but other than that, as I said, there's more downsides than there are benefits for being famous, especially being hyper famous. Like if you look at Drake, Drake can't go outside without being swarmed by a mob of people and reporters, paparazzis. That's not a way to live. So Drake level is way too famous, but there is a way. There's definitely people that are rich, so they have the money, but they don't have that fame associated with them. A good example is Ben Francis, the CEO of Gymshark. Right now, without searching up, you probably don't know what his face is, what he looks like. And that's a good thing for him because then nobody's going to swarm him. But he has a bunch of money, so he can walk around town without having to be mobbed, but have that benefit, that luxury of money, of I guess hidden status. I think also, even with him though, although he's not famous, there's definitely sacrifices to the wealth that he gets. So no matter what pathway you take, whether it's fame and less money, or more money and less fame, or no fame and no money, or less fame and less money, there's always going to be things that you're missing out on. So with a bunch of money, a lot of people neglect that. Usually those people, like the CEO of Gymshark, Ben Francis, he's going to be crazy stressed about all his employees and making sure that his company isn't going under. I can't relate to that because I don't even have a company that I'm the CEO of, but to me that sounds incredibly stressful, being the head of being having to provide for everyone that works under you. And all right, so the next reason why I'm starting a podcast would be, I guess that wasn't really famous, wasn't really being a reason. It was just a consequence of starting a podcast. So what's nice about podcasts is you're able to have these deep discussions. It's natural to have these deep discussions. So podcasts are a pretext for deep discussion you generally can't get with people in a normal conversation. It's really awkward bringing up these deep conversations with even friends. You'd have to be very close friends, and even if you're very close friends, there's some things that your friend is going to leave out. I guess in a podcast they'll still leave it out, but they're they will be less well thought out. The opinions that your guest, the person that you're talking to with this conversation, this deep conversation, will be less thought out and less deep, and you could easily segue into another theme without, even though you wanted to continue in a particular theme. So with that pretext of having a podcast and bringing on guests, you're able to guide the conversation exactly how you want it to be. Now, there's kind of a balance you have to play with that, because you can't just force the conversation into what you want. Conversation is a two-person job. You have to realize what the person wants to speak about and be skillful in the way you guide the conversation. I find that, especially with new people you meet for the first time, or people that you're not super close friends with, the conversation is very superficial. For example, today I was talking with my friend's younger brother. And I say that specifically because I wouldn't say he's my friend. So it's kind of this weird situation where we're not super close, but we'll still talk because, I mean, he saw me. It's kind of courtesy. And naturally, I just said, "Hey, how's it going? What are you doing right now? Are you working for the summer?" And honestly, I hate when people ask me those questions. I think they're nice questions for the person who's asking them. That way, that person gets information and is able to understand where to continue the conversation, but they add nothing to the person who you're talking to. And it ends up being just boring. I think this is extremely common in the university setting, where the starter question that everyone will ask is, what's your major? You hear that, especially first year, it's unbearably annoying, at least for me. And you basically, as the person who, if somebody asks you that, you have your response already crafted, perfectly crafted. And then at that point, you're just reciting it. You're not even, you're just on autopilot. You're not thinking of the response. You just say it. I agree, though, that I will say that it is important for that other person to know your major so that they're able to continue the conversation, for example. But there's other ways to start a conversation. And that's what I've been working on. That's what I've done actually at university, where I intentionally avoid asking what's your major, because people are tired of hearing that. And when you're the person who strays from that typical conversation, they're going to be more inclined to talk with you, and it's actually going to be an interesting conversation that you actually want to listen to. You want to partake in. So I'll give you an example. I guess I could give a couple of examples. You could ask, are you in any clubs? What sports do you play? Do you listen to music? That's a big one that I ask, but I probably shouldn't, because I always mention that I'm a big Juice World fan, and there's very few people that are Juice World fans, or even who like rap at my age now. It's it's starting to diminish, so I have to start to move to a genre that is more mainstream, like indie, or I don't even know, pop, or Ariana Grande's Sabrina Carpenter type music, which I have been moving towards, but it's a work in progress. Yeah. So I listed also that another conversation starter, I guess, or something that I always mention, or something that's always mentioned, specifically now, is Kendrick versus Drake. I've heard, I think almost all of my friends mention that. Ask me, do you think Kendrick or Drake is winning? And I kind of regret, because I asked my friend that when we ran out of things to talk about. I was thinking, what could we possibly talk about? And then Drake and Kendrick popped into my mind because I was listening to music. And so I just naturally said, "Oh, who do you think is winning?" But it's one of those things where it's like, I really don't care about that conversation. I I mean, it's interesting to know that person's ideas, opinions on Kendrick versus Drake, but I don't care about Kendrick or Drake. So that conversation is mainly just null to me. Null space, just wasting both of our times. The other reason I want to start a podcast would be because I now like talking to people. Okay, so back when I was in grade 4, yeah, I actually took it as a challenge to not talk for an entire day. And I would try to do that multiple times, of course, throughout grade 4. And my record is, I'm pretty sure my record is 2 days in a row where I would not talk to anyone, not say anything, actually. I think I literally said nothing, not even to myself. I was pretty proud of that. I think I'm still a little proud of that. But what it result the results from that made me more insecure about talking in public, talking with others, and it hindered my capabilities of socialization. Basically, in layman's terms, I couldn't it was much harder for me to start conversations. It was much harder for me to talk with people, with even my friends. I just I could talk. It just it took effort. It took way more effort than it does now, at least. And so that was grade 4. Grade 5 was and that also made me more shy, more introverted, I would say. I was already introverted and having those experiences of trying not to talk at all. That definitely made an impact on my introversion. So grade 5, this is actually embarrassing to me, and I wish I hadn't done this. I took it as a challenge the entire grade 5, the entire year. I took it as a challenge to not talk to girls. So I wouldn't talk to girls in my class, and of course, the teacher was female. So that's where the line was kind of blurred. I could talk with my teacher because that just made no sense if I could not talk with my teacher. But I think I still had the idea that I should keep talking to my teacher with a minimum, with a I shouldn't talk with my teacher too much, with as as minimal as possible, as little as possible. So no talking to girls at all. That was at the stage where I hadn't developed hormones yet, significant hormones yet. So I didn't feel a need to talk with girls in the first place. I didn't want to, but I realize now I should have developed that skill while I was in school, while I could have practiced easily with the comfort of failing, even if I failed to talk with, even if it was awkward to talk with girls, I could still do it. And I'm not talking about asking out girls or flirting. I'm just saying being able to understand girls and their way of thinking because it's different from how you would talk with a guy. And of course, that stage, that grade 5 stage hindered my speaking ability, my socialization even more. I Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest regrets I have actually. I didn't first consider it that big of a regret, but I don't think I should have hindered. I already have trouble speaking. That's a big part of why I'm doing this video series to increase my to get more comfortable with speaking in front of a camera, but also more formally, organizing my ideas and being able to give these sort of video essays in a concise manner without saying all these words like like, and so, filler words. And not only that, being able to speak at a pace that won't be annoying to listen to for somebody who's actually engaging with me, who's speaking with me. I think though what's interesting is if I didn't do this, I would have wanted to be introverted later on in my life. So at this point, I would have probably been more introverted than the current situation where I was introverted earlier, but now I would say extroverted even. I just realized I'm not getting to the other 2 points. And I'll also add that what made me want this, what made me become more extroverted was COVID, basically. I was very comfortable in COVID because I was introverted at that point, but I still wanted to hang out with my friends, but we couldn't because there was a full-on lockdown, and you weren't allowed to. I think we still managed to hang out and everything, but it was frowned upon, and you shouldn't do it. It was something that you shouldn't do, and you could get fined or maybe even arrested. So during COVID, a little actually, I think it was after COVID, I took a gap year and I worked at Best Buy. And that was a lot of fun. Definitely don't regret working at Best Buy. But while I was at Best Buy, I became way more comfortable with talking to people because I was the cashier. And I would have thought all I have to do is just process transactions and give them the receipt. But it's interesting because people go out of their way to start a conversation. They'll hand you the product and then they'll say, "Oh, how's your day going? Has it been busy?" Random things like that. Especially older people, especially which caters to Best Buy caters to older people. For some reason, you just see a flood of seniors at Best Buy's opening at I think it's like 9 a.m. That's when Best Buy opened, and you'd see seniors just line up in front of the Best Buy. So I got much more comfortable with speaking on the fly and having these what I called superficial conversations. But I no, but from that I also wanted to talk with my coworkers because a lot of them were male and a lot of them were had similar interests to me. So I could develop friendships and I had nobody in town to speak to really or hang out with because all of my friends were at university. So I was basically forced to create these friendships and talk with people. Create these friendships through talking with people. And I was successful. I gained a couple of friends and I still have these friends. I still hang out with these friends. There's one friend in particular from Best Buy that we've hanged out with we've hanged out together intermittently throughout summer. And I'm really glad that I had the ability to speak, to talk and befriend people in Best Buy. And even people that I'll never see again. Have these conversations, trial and error, see what would be awkward to say and what would entice people to continue talking with me and have a good day, a good experience visiting the customer service, the checkout at Best Buy. The next thing that I was going to talk about was